I'm Dave Morris from the Apopko Studios here at Britain and Broadway. It is the Friday Football Hangout. I am trying to fill in the large shoes of Mike Sherman this afternoon as we navigate our way through OU Texas weekend. And as you can see, I have my expert friends right next to me in the Google Hangout. Let's go through it. A quick introduction to Jenni Carlson on the road on her way to Texas right now. Jenni, how's it going?
It's great. We're smooth sailing on I-35, so if you're looking for a traffic update, I'm here to help.
Well, the guy who's looking for a traffic update is Ryan Aber. He's also joining us. He is currently at his home somewhere in Moore, waiting for the chat to wrap up so he can get on the road. Ryan, how are things?
I'm doing great. Just ready to get on the road and enjoy this weekend in Dallas.
Well, I think a lot of football fans in general would agree with that sentiment. Jason Kersey is also joining us. Jason, how are things?
Great. How's everybody doing?
I think we're all doing well. Jason, where are you at?
I'm at home in Norman.
You know, I believe it was last week or perhaps 2 weeks ago, we had these fellows at a McDonald's on the road trip. I think that was before the OU Notre Dame game. So you never know where they're going to show up, but they are dedicated to the Friday Football Hangout. And Jenni, we'll go back to you and lead off with it in today's Red River Extra section, the route to victory. You're en route to Dallas in the Cotton Bowl, but the route to victory, because this contest hasn't been that close recently.
No, the last 2 years have been route cities for Oklahoma, really taking it to Texas. And, you know, these have been tough seasons for Texas, not been up to par since they lost the national championship game in 2009. But a lot of storylines that kind of come to a crescendo in this rivalry. You know, Mac Brown, obviously his job status is clearly questionable. Most people thinking this is his last Red River rivalry, his last season at Texas, and a lot of thought that these routes to Oklahoma are at least part of the problem. You don't want to lose to your rival, and you definitely don't want to get blown out. And these last 2 years have been blowouts, and Jason and Ryan have both written this week about the fact that it looks like this one's going to be very similar. How could it not be another route after what we've seen these first couple of weeks?
Well, let's go to Ryan Aber right now and kind of recap some of the coverage that you have thrown our way in the Oklahoman and on newsok.com this week in light of that.
Yeah, we wrote today about the routes that this series has seen the last few years and how they've all been a little bit different. You saw last year or 2 years ago, all the defensive touchdowns sort of got things rolling. Last year was a little bit of everything, some big plays with Damian Williams' 95-yard run and the big Trey Millard play from last year that didn't wind up in a touchdown but got him awfully close, that really set the tone for the physicality of this game. And it is hard to look at both these teams coming into this game and see anything other than a route as the outcome.
And Jason Kersey, let's bring you back in and kind of recap some of the coverage that you have brought to us this week.
We just obviously, like you said, today's Red River Extra was sort of covered the routes. And like Ryan said, it's just kind of hard to imagine this game going any differently than the last two have. I mean, I've got no reason to believe that it won't be another route between, the way Texas' season has gone so far, plus the way that the last two Red River rivalries have gone. I mean, Texas is certainly talented enough to make this a game, I think. But so far they haven't played up to their ability, and it's kind of hard to imagine them flipping that switch all of a sudden right now.
We're chatting live via Google Hangout on the Friday Football Hangout today. Again, I'm Dave Morris, joined by Jenni Carlson, Ryan Aber, and Jason Kersey. It's OU Texas weekend. You can follow us on newsok.com live, and there are comments that you can join in as well. And guys, I'm going to lead this off to you, Jenni, first, with the question that we were asking some of our football fans who are following online. Could an upset victory over OU be just what Mac Brown needs to buy him some more time in Austin? Jenni, I believe your mic may be muted right now. Stand by uno momento.
There we go.
There we are. We're back.
Works better when it's not muted. I'm sorry.
My mic doesn't. My mic always works better when it's muted, trust me. But anyway, could an upset victory by the Sooners buy Mac Brown more time?
It certainly can't hurt. I think if what we're talking about here in terms of, a potential Oklahoma blowout again in this game, I think you might be looking at a situation where, there's an announcement in the next few days of Mac's future. I think that the thought is that nothing would happen officially until the end of the year. But if they lose by a route, I don't necessarily see Texas changing coaching in the middle of the season. That just doesn't strike me as something that Texas does. I mean, that's sort of not their style. But I could definitely see if there's a route tomorrow in the Cotton Bowl, I could definitely see Texas making an announcement about Mac retiring, about this being Mac's final season that he's done after the year. I could definitely see that becoming formal in the next few days if this is another route. I don't think that they would wait to make that announcement.
Hey, Ryan, I'll throw the question your way. Would an upset win over the Sooners, by the way, favored by 14, would an upset win by the Longhorns buy Mac Brown more time in Austin?
I think it might buy him a week or two, but for Mac Brown to be the coach of Longhorns next year, it's going to take a Big 12 title, and that's going to be beating OU, Baylor, Texas Tech, and Oklahoma State, and I just don't think that that's possible this year. I think I don't know that I expect an announcement coming soon unless it was from Mac Brown's side, just because of the Longhorns trying to hire an athletic director, and I think they want to get that done first before they go out and look for a football coach. But certainly a OU win tomorrow would seal Mac Brown's fate absolutely going into next season.
Hey, Ryan, on that topic, I guess that makes a whole lot of sense. You might want to have an athletic director, so he's bringing in his guy, and I'm sure there's a lot of people with input on the Texas coach, but that might make sense, AD before next coach, right? Yeah,
absolutely. I think they want to have the guy at the top end place before they hire a head coach. Now, if Mac Brown decides that he wants to make an announcement that this is last year and he's going to retire, that could happen. But I don't see the school pushing him out or firing him until they've got an AD in place for next year.
Hey, Ryan, I'm going to stick with you real fast. I noticed on newsok.com live, we have a comment from Brian Longley, and this is something you spoke with Jenni earlier this week on newsok.com in a video segment about Corey Nelson. And the question is this: how does losing linebacker Corey Nelson affect the OU defense in Saturday's game against Texas?
It's huge. Corey Nelson had been absolutely fantastic this year to this point, not just with what he was doing at the linebacker spot, but what he brought to everybody else. He was the one getting everybody in place, letting those young guys, especially guys like Eric Stryker, Dominique Alexander, those freshmen who hadn't played much, making sure they were in the right position to make plays. And that's a big-time loss. I think he's been their best defender all year, and couldn't have come at a worse time for the Sooners.
Sooner defense is playing pretty well this year. Who needs to fill that role, and who has been playing pretty well so far?
Well, I think you look at Dominique Alexander is going to be the guy who's going to step up into that role. He's a freshman, but Frank Shannon has got to take on a lot of those other responsibilities. He's been playing fantastically next to Nelson, but he's going to have to do a lot of those communication and leadership type things that Nelson was doing going into last week.
Jason, we'll bring you in the conversation that we had about Mac Brown and perhaps an upset win over the Sooners being good for his future career in Texas. But Mac Brown is kind of the overriding storyline this year, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I think he definitely is. You know, you're looking at a game, a coaching rivalry, Bob Stoops and Mac Brown, that's one of the longest running really in college football. And with Mac Brown, his success he's had over his career at Texas, he really made the Longhorns a national contender, won a national championship, got to another national championship game. The overall body of work has been solid, but then there's also this OU problem. He's 6-9 against OU, which it may not seem terrible, but when 4 of those losses are complete blowouts, that just adds to it. And I think that if that was to happen again, I don't see him getting fired or resigning during the season unless there's another route tomorrow. If there's another route tomorrow, that's when I could see maybe a change being made in the middle of the year. But just a loss, I think it would have to be really bad for him to be gone before the season's over.
Jason, let's stick with you and switch topics a little bit to the quarterback and the play of Blake Bell, and that has to have been a pleasant surprise, perhaps not an unexpected surprise to the Sooner coaching staff, but it has to be a pleasant surprise for them that he has performed so well, especially in South Bend.
Yeah, most definitely, the coaches may say that they would have expected Blake Bell to play this well, but
of course they're going to say that, right?
But exactly, but that can't be really that much there can't be that much of truth to that because he wasn't even named the starter at the beginning of the year, for crying out loud. They expected Trevor Knight to be the quarterback by this point. So yeah, I mean, I think that they're pleased. I think they believe in him now, and maybe they always did, but they certainly couldn't have expected this level of production from Blake Bell. If they had, if they really did expect that, then why the heck wasn't he the quarterback at the opener?
It's the Friday Football Hangout here on NewsOK.com. I'm Dave Moyes, joined by Jason Kersey. You just heard from him, and Ryan Aber. Jenni Carlson is on her way from Oklahoma City down to Dallas. And Jenni, I think you're just south of Marietta. How's the traffic?
We've actually crossed the Texas state line.
Uh-oh.
We are about
territory.
two or three miles into Texas, and traffic's actually moving really well. We haven't had too many even slowdowns. So I can at least at this moment say that if you're heading to Dallas, it looks like the roads are in pretty good shape.
How was the WinStar? It seems like that parking lot, that massive parking lot, is always full.
Yeah, you know what? There's always something new there, too. Nate did not pull over. Nate Billings, our intrepid photographer and my driver today, did not pull over to the WinStar, but definitely it was active even at, 12:40 on a Friday.
I like how Nate had those official driver's glasses, too. I mean, he looked like he should be working for Uber or something.
He definitely looks serious in that driver position, doesn't he?
Well, back to a serious topic. Let's talk Blake Bell and perhaps how a good game, a win at the Cotton Bowl in Texas would help him out. And what I'm getting at is big game experience. We talked to Notre Dame last week and now OU Texas, and perhaps who knows where this could lead, but the confidence that would be in this young man after pulling off two big wins and not, I said Notre Dame last week, it was 2 weeks ago, but two big wins in hostile territories.
Yeah, definitely. I think anytime you get experience in games, it's important, and experience against good teams is, a heightened level of importance. And then you go on the road in those games, even though this game against Texas is a 50-50 split, although we're hearing that the Texas side might be more Oklahoma folks than past years, as Texas folks are unloading tickets and whatnot. But obviously, what Blake Bell does in these games is big. He's played in big games and big situations with that Belldozer package and goal line situations when touchdowns were needed. So he had a little bit of experience playing in tough situations and hostile environments, but clearly the more times that he gets on the field as a starting quarterback and comes away successful, the better it is for him, the better it is for this team. It's interesting, Jason was talking earlier about Trevor Knight, and the truth is against Texas, Trevor Knight might actually be the more effective quarterback with that quarterback run game. Texas has shown no ability to be able to stop a running quarterback like Trevor Knight. I think Blake Bell is going to have success running the football too. But Trevor Knight, if this becomes a route and we see Trevor Knight come on the field, we might actually see the Sooner offense get more effective with Trevor Knight running the offense. I think it could be a really, really crazy situation when it comes to the offense the Sooners can put up on Saturday.
Ryan, let's throw the topic your way. Your thoughts on Blake Bell versus the Longhorns, and then what Jenni was just saying, perhaps Trevor Knight coming in.
Yeah, I think we saw last year he was so effective in that Belldozer package in this game, scoring 4 touchdowns all in the first half. And he's been about as good as you could have asked for to this point in the season. The fact that he's not throwing interceptions, he's making the right decisions. When he gets pressure, he's either making the right read, throwing it away, or taking the sack. He's not throwing it right to the chest of the opponent like we've seen the last couple of years. And he's just been as good as they could have hoped for. And I do think Trevor Knight could see his place in this game, whether it's early in the game in a specialized package to use the zone read that has been so effective against the Longhorns this year, especially in that big loss to BYU, or after the game gets out of hand, Trevor Knight comes in, and this offense could get a kickstart with Trevor Knight against the Longhorns defense with their weaknesses.
It's the Friday Football Hangout. I'm Dave Morris here on NewsOK.com. For those of you following on NewsOK.com/live, there is a comment field to the right just there of the video screen, and there are a few comments. Let me get to those real fast. Teresa, I'm going to follow up on your comment because you said if Texas manages to win, might that extend Mack Brown's career? And we've already addressed that question, that perhaps it could extend it for a few weeks. Our panel of experts here, Jenni Carlson, Ryan Aber, and Jason Kersey, believe it's only a matter of time before he's out of there. The Sooners are favored by 14, and Jenni, I'll come back to you. Ed has a comment and says, if everyone is saying OU will rout Texas, why are they favored by only 14?
Well, I mean, I think anytime you're talking about odds makers versus sort of people on the ground, I think odds makers always, that's a little bit of they tend to pick closer games than I think a lot of us predict. And I mean, Texas does nationally, when you're talking about Vegas, when you're talking about people going in and placing bets or, getting with their people to make bets around the country, Texas and that name still carries a lot of weight. I mean, it's still Texas. It's still the Longhorns. I think the cachet that they carry is still pretty significant. But for those of us that are watching this series and preparing for this game, have really kind of looked at this matchup and how the Sooners match up against the Longhorns. I just don't see how it stays within 2 touchdowns. To me, that would be if OU walks out of the Cotton Bowl with a 2-touchdown victory tomorrow. I think there's going to be a lot of people saying, what in the world is going on with Oklahoma? I just think people are expecting this to be non-competitive. It was non-competitive a year ago, and Oklahoma's better than it was last year, and Texas is worse. So I think, people look at it that way and say, how could it not be another round?
But that's why we play the game, right, guys?
That's
exactly.
true.
I think this line opened around 13 or 14, and it has certainly been bet up and down a little bit throughout the week, but it's staying pretty consistent. Guys, online we have a few questions asking about the Cotton Bowl and perhaps shifting the game over to Jerry World, and what would prevent that, and what are you guys' thoughts on that? Jason, I'll throw that your way.
I think that's one of the more interesting things that's going to watch over the next few years when it comes to this game. It's obviously OU fans and Texas fans love the tradition of playing in the Cotton Bowl. They love playing on State Fair weekend with all the pageantry going on. The fact that it's about equidistance between Austin and Norman. I think that's all something that's really neat to everyone. It's one of the more unique college football atmospheres in America, if not the most unique college football atmosphere in America. But you also have to face the reality of the Cowboys' new stadium is much nicer, and the Cotton Bowl has tried to do things and renovate. But at some point, you've got to believe that they'll probably make a move like that. I personally, just being a little bit of a college football traditionalist, I like the game where it is, and I hope it stays there. But I also think there are concerns about, and I wrote about this in today's newspaper, I think there are concerns about the game being at 11 a.m. It's kind of an early kickoff for people who want to enjoy the fair and do all those things, but they can't play the game at night because of safety concerns, and they can't play it at 2:30 because of television concerns. So it's stuck at 11. So you kind of have to decide which one you'd rather have, 11 a.m. at the Cotton Bowl or a night game in Jerry World.
Jason, hard-hitting question here. Any favorite fair foods for you?
For me?
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, any favorite fair food? I mean, are you a big turkey leg fan?
Anything fried. I'll eat just about anything fried. Although there's some of the stuff is a little bit weird. I don't, I can't think of any just now off the top of my head, but there's been some really weird fried stuff that I'm
fried butter before noon.
I'm a little bit skittish about some of that stuff.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Jenny threw out no fried food before noon, and that seems like a golden rule to follow. Our chat online has really picked up some good questions here. I'll throw this out to you guys. If Mac Brown does leave, are there any front runners or names of possible replacements?
My first one, guys, and I don't know anything about anything, but the first one that I think that they will seriously look at, I think they'll call Nick Saban. I think they'll at least see what interest he has. I think they'll extend a call to John Gruden as well. I've been out of NFL coaching for a while. I've heard that there's maybe some interest in him in Texas, but I think really they get serious about Art Briles, the Baylor coach. He's been fantastic in Waco, turned them into a winner. When did we ever think that would happen? They're going to build a new stadium. He's able to recruit guys that Texas should be getting. He's running an offense that Texas, they wish they had. I think, and he's a Texas guy. You talk to Art Briles and you feel like you're talking to Mr. Texas. So I just think that that's a guy that they're going to have to look very, very seriously at.
And he's had fantastic success in Baylor. Ryan Aber, I have a question for you from Brian Longley on our chat. With Texas struggling with misdirection plays, will we see OU running a lot more zone read plays and other types of misdirection plays?
I think there's certainly a chance that we see the zone read be a big part of Oklahoma's running game. on Saturday, just because, like you mentioned, they have really struggled against those type of plays. The quarterback run that Jason's actually writing about this for tomorrow's paper, and the Longhorns' struggles in containing the opposing quarterbacks has been a big part of their issues. So we could see that used quite a bit more than we've seen it the last few weeks.
Jason, a question from Jerry, who asks, Blake Bell will throw his first pick in the first half of this game, yay or nay?
I would say no. Blake Bell's been remarkably efficient with the ball. Now he's going to throw an interception at some point. I mean, he has to, right? But against this defense, I kind of doubt it. But I don't know when he'll throw it. I guess he has to at some point.
Peyton Manning eventually did, right?
Happens eventually. Comment from user Jeff. Jenni, we'll start with you. What are the odds that at the end of the season an undefeated OU team does not play for the national championship?
Well, I mean, first of all, they have to get undefeated, which is clearly, it's going to take, playing some tough teams, especially in November. You're looking at going to Waco on a Thursday night, so you know that Baylor folks are going to be fired up for that game. You're looking at going to Stillwater in the regular season finale. Oklahoma State has struggled, but I still think is a capable team offensively, and defensively is very, very good from what I've seen. So still some tough games between now and undefeated for Oklahoma. But if they go undefeated, if you look around the country, I see it's going to be a hard road for them to leapfrog enough teams to get there. To me, it looks like Ohio State has a pretty clear march to undefeated. Same for Alabama. Oregon has got a tough game against Stanford. Stanford's got a tough game against Oregon. So one of those teams is likely to be undefeated. It just seems like there's a lot of teams sort of marching towards undefeated, and they're all ahead of Oklahoma right now, and probably all have tougher conference schedules in their favor. So if Oklahoma does get to undefeated, I mean, clearly that puts you in the conversation, but I just think there are a lot of other teams, given the strength of the conferences that they're in. Oklahoma will have a tough time leapfrogging enough of them to get to the national championship game.
Ryan Aber, your thoughts. What are the odds that if OU happens to go undefeated this season, that they don't play for the national championship?
Yeah, I'm like Jenni. I think it would be tough for them to leapfrog some of those teams. I think they could finish ahead of the Big Ten winner, whether it's Ohio State or Michigan. We've seen Michigan has had a lot of problems. They could fall in another game and then wind up knocking out Ohio State at the end. But it'd be hard for me to see them passing the SEC winner. I think even maybe a one-loss Georgia team, they'd be tough, hard-pressed to jump them. And then we haven't even talked about Clemson and Florida State, who are playing out of their minds right now too, and they're going to play later in the season. And then Louisville struggled a little bit last night. Teddy Bridgewater didn't look like the Heisman Trophy type guy that we had seen early in the season, but their defense played pretty well. I think they've got a chance to jump them just because of the schedule. But you throw all of those things together, and I think it'd be tough for OU to jump all of those teams if 2 or 3 of them finish undefeated as well.
And Jason, finally, your thoughts. An undefeated OU team not making the national championship. What are your thoughts on the odds there?
Just to echo the Jenni and Ryan, what they said, I agree. I think that if Oregon and Alabama are undefeated, there's no way OU's getting in. And Ryan alluded to this. If Georgia wins out and only has one loss, I could easily see them getting in ahead of an undefeated OU team. Whether that's right or wrong, I don't know, but it definitely could happen. Louisville is a team I think OU might be able to jump, but Louisville is ahead of them right now. So you just kind of never know with these things. And OU's been a beneficiary of some BCS fortune throughout the BCS era. I mean, they got in ahead of an unbeaten Auburn in 2004 and then got waxed by USC in the national title game. They got in despite losing their conference championship game in 2003 over a Pac-12 champion USC team. And they got in 2008 over one loss with the same record as Texas when Texas had beaten OU head-to-head. So OU, if they don't get in, I don't think OU fans have a whole lot to complain about because they've gotten some pretty good breaks through the years.
Well, here's another thing to think about, guys, and this is sort of a cautionary tale to Oklahoma fans. It may pain you to do this if you're an Oklahoma fan, but you have to cheer for Oklahoma. You have to cheer for Texas. You have to cheer for Baylor. You have to cheer for these teams when you're not playing them. You have to cheer for them to be as good as they can possibly be. And really it's those teams that if you can say, we throttled Texas and they finished the year with only 2 or 3 losses, I guess is what they'd be looking at, or we throttled Oklahoma State and they finished with only 2 losses. I mean, that's the kind of thing that you can build an argument around. But if you play Oklahoma State and they've lost 3 or 4 games, or you play Baylor and they've lost a couple games, your argument really starts to have a bunch of holes in it. So if you're an Oklahoma fan, you got to cheer for those teams that are the name teams and the teams that are at the top of the conference. You got to cheer for them like crazy when you're not playing them.
It's the Friday Football Hangout. I'm Dave Morris here at the Pubco Studios at Britton and Broadway. Final question time. It's OU Texas weekend. Kickoff 11 a.m. Sooners favored by 14. Jenni, before we lose your connection, I'm going to go back to you. Your thoughts and your pick for tomorrow's game.
I've got Oklahoma winning pretty big. I think I picked 45-17 or 45-13 or something like that. I could see it getting way more out of hand, frankly, but that seemed like enough points for me. The thing that I'm most curious about is just how good the Oklahoma offense can be against Texas's defense. Texas's defense, to me, I think Ryan mentioned it before, this is a Texas team that seems like it has enough talent to be better than they've been, but they just haven't done it. So the Texas defense, especially to me, seems like they've got talented guys that just aren't able to make tackles, really aren't able to fulfill that potential. So if they get a couple stops, maybe that keeps it within 4 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns, but I could easily see it getting way more out of hand. Texas getting not at all, just sort of losing interest and losing hope, and Oklahoma really running away with it.
Ryan Aber, what will we see tomorrow, and who's your pick?
Well, I think Oklahoma is going to be able to move the ball well, especially on the ground. Like we talked about, Texas has struggled against the run, especially with Blake Bell and the zone read. I think you're going to see that quite a bit. My pick for the score is 45-10. I think a little bit lower than some people. I know Jenni's is pretty close to that, but I think it's going to be a very comfortable lead for OU, and maybe by the second quarter. But I think OU is able to grind out some long drives that maybe take some more time and keep them from posting those 50 points by halftime or something like that.
And Jason, finally we come your way. Your thoughts on tomorrow and who you have in this game?
I went a little more high scoring. I picked OU to win 63-17, and here's why.
A little more high scoring. Holy cow!
The last 2 years have given me no reason to believe that OU. Here's the bottom line. I want to be right, and the last 2 years they've won by at least 38 points and scored at least 55 points in each of those games. So I want to be right, and the historical evidence says that it'll be a score like that.
I like how Jason came back with the Barry Trammell. Here's the deal. I want to be right. All right, that does it for this Friday Football Hangout. Big thanks to Todd Frazier, Christopher James in the studio, for Tiffany Gibson for helping out with our online efforts. Hey, Jenni and Nate, be safe on the road. Jason and Ryan, be safe when you guys get on the road. And thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in. The Friday Football Hangout here on newsok.com. Again, OU Texas is tomorrow. See you guys.